everyone. My name is Laura Bloom, and I am now going to be kicking off our panel discussion today. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Sushma Battle as our moderator for this session. We may not have enough time today to share all the accomplishments our moderator and panelists have, but I would like for Sushma to start with a self-introduction, and we'll take it from there. Over to you, Sushma.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Sushma Battle, Senior Genetic Counselor from Newburgh Center for Genomic Medicine, India. Thank you for having me as a moderator here. I've been working in this field for the past 7 years as a genetic counselor and have been creating awareness about rare conditions amongst clinicians and the public through different webinars, seminars, interacting with them one-on-one, and of course through genetic counseling. I've been fortunate to be a part of more than 4,000 patients' rare journeys. And I would like to congratulate Global Genes for making such a commendable job on creating awareness and making an inclusive community across the globe. Thank you. I would like to hand it over to Mr. Prasanna to introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Prasanna Shirol from India, Bangalore. I'm a co-founder and executive director of ORDI. ORDI is Organization for Rare Disease India, started in 2013. And I'm also a father of Pompe patient diagnosed in India way back in 2007. ORDI works on a 360 degree in the area of advocacy, awareness, patient support, and access to clinical trials and new drug therapy. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Gulati.
Thank you, Prasanna. I'm Professor Sheffali Gulati. I'm Chief of Child Neurology Division at the Department of Pediatrics, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, India, which is an institute of national importance. I'm coordinator of the DM Pediatric Neurology Program, which was established in 2004, and it was the first super specialty neurology program in South Asia. I spent last 24 years in developing pediatric neurology in India as a specialty, besides academics, clinical care, patient empowerment, research, advocacy, and public health. We cater to all neurological and neurodevelopmental disorders, including neuromuscular disorders, autism, neurogenetic, and neurodegenerative diseases. I envisioned and conceptualized and a faculty in charge of the Center of Excellence and Advanced Research for Childhood Neurodevelopmental Disorders, which is providing high quality, affordable care for all sections of the society, performing high-end diagnostic and therapeutic research, and we are developing a national registry and acting as an education training hub with a national child neurology helpline toll-free and teleconsultation services. In addition, by being an expert to various international societies like International Society for Autism Research, ILA, International League Against Epilepsy, International Child Neurology Training Teaching Network, Indo-Canadian Autism Network, and being a chairperson of Academy of Pediatric Neurology and president-elect AOCN, Association of Child Neurology, I'm able to network with professionals, parent support groups, and government for advocacy. And I'm very happy to be here with you all today. And I thank Global Genes for the opportunity. Over to you, Helen.
Hi everyone, fellow panelists and Sushma. I'm Helen Zhou from the Illness Challenge Foundation. We are a patient organization based in Beijing, China, and we work with all types of rare diseases on a national level. Well, speaking of myself, I studied rehabilitation counseling and started work with rare diseases community since 2013. I worked at the China Dolls Center for Rare Disorders at first. It's one of the earliest and the biggest rare disease patient organization in China, and it focuses on rare bone diseases. In the summer of 2014, the China Dolls Center for Rare Disorders introduced the Ice Bucket Challenge to China, and the campaign successfully promoted public awareness and social support for the ALS community and other rare diseases. Well, in furtherance of the sustained attention and vigorous support from the society, the China Dolls Center for Rare Disorders founded the Illness Challenge Foundation, the ICF. And the ICF dedicated to integrating social resources and establishing a large platform to transform the social support for the rare diseases community into an efficient, effective, and sustainable mechanism, and to solve urgent matters faced by the rare disease community by keeping the patients at the center, empowering the community, promoting innovation, and collaborating with multiple stakeholders. Well, since 2020, I've been working at the Information Research and the Global Collaboration team. And our team basically provides local, national, and global information and resources to the rare disease communities in China. And we also develop toolkits and training courses for rare disease patients and patient organizations. Well, I'm really glad to be here. And I think, Atif, you are next.
Thank you, Helen. I'm Atif Qureshi, and I'm the president of Lysosomal Storage Disorder Society, Pakistan. And I'm also father of two daughters diagnosed with life-limiting disorder called Gaucher disease. They were diagnosed. My journey actually in rare disorders started in 2010 when my daughter was diagnosed with Gaucher disease. So, based on my experiences, with the diagnosis and with the access to the treatment and the experiencing the challenges which other family members are facing, we formed a patient support group in 2018. The aim of this advocacy group is to, advocating for the rights of the patients in Pakistan and to provide the platform for the patients so that they can raise their voice and raise their concerns to the authorities. So over to you, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you, Atif. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for Global Genes for the opportunity to take part in this event. My name is Tanya Collin-Histed, and first and foremost, I am mum to Maddie. Maddie was diagnosed with neuronopathic Gaucher's disease at the age of 17 months, and ever since that day, I've been fighting for Maddie and then other patients and their families with Gaucher's disease all over the world. I've now been working in patient advocacy for 25 years, first in the UK, then in Europe, and now globally. I vowed that whilst I could, and Maddie was well, I would do whatever I could to be someone's person when they found themselves being told that their child had Gaucher's disease and they needed information to find a doctor to talk to, they needed a shoulder to cry on, and most importantly, they needed hope. Patient advocacy can be a very lonely job, but also can be very rewarding, but full of so much heartache, frustration, and anger as to what patients and their families go through. And I wanted to be a person that could help even just one person. So today, I'm the CEO of the International Gaucher Alliance. The European Gaucher Alliance was established in 1994, and we became international in 2018. Currently, we have 57 members representing 55 countries, but we work in a lot of other countries that don't have established patient groups. We're a member organisation run majoritively by volunteers, and we work collaboratively with the clinical community. Thank you very much. Back to Sushma.
Thank you, everyone, for your kind introductions. It's a pleasure, and I know that this discussion will be so fruitful with so many of you from different parts of the world and so much of experience related to rare disease organizations. So one important aspect of rare conditions is that it is a little difficult to cope up with the diagnosis. So I would like to ask Mr. Atif, on he being a parent of a child with a rare condition and also the president of lysosomal storage disorder Pakistan, what would be his message to these families? How can they be more positive and resilient, and how does his organization help in this aspect?
Thank you, Sushma. Yeah, as you have mentioned, that it's a really very challenging when it is when your child is being diagnosed with a life-limiting disorder. And I personally have experienced when my daughter was diagnosed, and I was given a lifetime, for her lifetime, like 4 to 5 years. So that was the moment you feel like the most, deprived and the most weak parent. So you always need emotional help, and you need some information. You need some, kind of support at that point in time. So as in my experience, I found some mentors. I found some, people who really are qualified to understand what I'm going through. So that was the exact idea why we formed this patient support group. So now what we do now is how we are supporting these families is that we first thing we do is we connect them with other rare disorder families so that they don't feel alone. They're not alone in this journey, so that they could have the emotional support. Another thing what we do is we are providing kind of updated information to them and helping them in terms of not only to access the information but advocating for their rights in terms of getting the access to the treatment and access to the information for the patient management. And we try to cover all the possible aspects which would be helpful for such a family who is being diagnosed with a rare disorder.
Thank you, Atif. You brought a very important point that these families should not feel alone. It is when they meet other families, it's better. They are able to cope up better. And the most important aspect is most of them are not aware of what the condition is. There's no proper diagnosis at the first level. So it's a great thing that you're working towards it. Talking about diagnosis and treatment, I would like to ask Dr. Gulati the next question. We know that it's kind of difficult and there are so many challenges in having a clinical trial, considering the treatment aspect, diagnosis aspect, or even the drug, the costing of the drug. So there are so many different aspects to a rare condition. How can we make it an inclusive environment?
Actually, having gone through multiple, research trials, national, international collaborations, developing some diagnostic and screening tools, giving normal therapies, and being part of certain trials like for DMD, for attenuated exon skipping, and SMA, going through various trials, including now a Zolgensma trial, and also coordinating the humanitarian access program for last 2 years with Zolgensma, Spinraza, and Risdiplam, and having completed 2 trials on ataxia and other on Rett, we just felt, some challenges are there which we face in LMICs like ours. One is I feel that there is a lack of multidisciplinary supportive care, which remains a backbone of every therapeutic intervention. And one should always have the importance of steroid use in DMD, because patients keep looking for specific drugs. They forget about the main thing. The cost issues are immense for these new drugs, especially for SMA and DMD. And there are lack of social support system, and parent support group needs to reach out more. ORDI and Cure SMA are doing amazing work, but I feel the professionals and the parent support groups should work together for advocacy and for these, in these situations. And for clinical trials, I've had little difficulty convincing parents at time for RCTs because of the placebo arm. Nobody wanted to consent to give for their child to be, because they were told that it'll be random. So they were sort of not convinced many times. But then, because of the assurance that the drug will be there in open label extension, most of the patients agreed. And as cost, as I mentioned, is very huge. And there is an ethics to it when the parents know that the medicine is now available, like in the case of SMA, but cost is prohibitive. So there should be some kind of, reduced pricing for LMICs by these companies. And the government should blanket give a import duty exemptions universally, which recently the GST was revoked from some of these drugs. And another problem I feel is that crowdfunding, which is being done by certain individuals, that is causing more anxiety and stress to the parents who are not able to get it done. So I feel the crowdfunding should be officially with the proper monitoring, and that should be monitored by professionals based on guidelines developed. Like we are developing the guidelines for SMA and DMD treatment, what should be the inclusion exclusion criteria, and all depending on the evidence. So all those things, other things are also being developed for other rare diseases for GOI. So I think according to that, then because some patients, they may not benefit, some will benefit for all these rare diseases. So because of the evidence, these guidelines should be made, and I feel that the crowdfunding should be centralized. And something which came to my mind was that the corporate social responsibility for all these MNCs and all, and we should be also they should be able to contribute to a corpus for crowdfunding which is centralized and under the government. And other thing I also feel is that you have early detection, because many times once you have neuro damage, suppose we had this adrenoleukodystrophy, we were doing stem cell, we did a hematopoietic stem cell. So once you have some kind of neurological damage, it will not get reversed. So early detection by increasing awareness, and in certain situations newborn screening and registries will be very, very important. And one thing which gets missed in many LMICs, the genetic counseling and prenatal diagnosis for next pregnancies. Why should we have two children with DMD in a family or two SMAs in a family? That's a failure of our doctors. And we have to also look at the social consequences for the entire life, not over the diagnosis in school and place of work and everywhere outside for the child and their families. So that is very, very important to keep in mind. And so psychosocial support should be given to the child, parents, and the siblings.
Thank you, Dr. Gulati. You have brought in so many amazing points that are important. First, which you mentioned was multidisciplinary system, which usually is lacking in our countries. And yes, of course, but that would mean that parents, the organizations, rare disease organizations, and if clinicians work together, it will be a marvelous thing for them. So they'll get the right kind of treatment at the right time, as you rightly said, that if they have to be picked up early. Even if we say most of the cases are not curable, but at least the treatment management aspect will change based on that. One more important aspect which you brought up was the crowdfunding and how the government could help. So in this aspect, I would like to ask Mr. Prasanna. India has come up with a rare disease policy. Can you throw some light on it, and how do rare disease organizations help in bringing up these kind of rare disease policies?
Thank you, Sushma. Yes, recently Government of India has announced the Rare Disease Policy 2021. This is the first time that Indian government has officially recognized rare disease in India, which is a welcome step. So basically the policy has main three components. The diseases are divided into three groups. First group is where for condition there is a one-time treatment like stem cell therapy, replacement, or bone marrow transplantation, renal transplantation, etc. Then second group where there is a treatment long-term but lower cost, which is left to the state, because in India health is basically a state subject. And since the cost of these conditions are relatively low, it could be IVIG for PID or growth hormone injection for some other condition, left to the state to have certain policy for this. And the third one is high cost, for the treatment where it is available, and long term. So for the first group, for one-time treatment, government has announced 20 lakh rupees, which is around $28,500, a one-time assistance for transplantation of bone marrow, treatment. But only thing, it is applicable for BPL family, that is certain economic category called below the poverty line. And the third one is, which Dr. Gulati mentioned about the crowdfunding. For all these conditions, government has suggested a crowdfunding and likely to raise funds through CSR initiatives. And they have set up a website, and there is a rare disease committee, experts committee. And this committee will screen the application, and then it will be put up in the website. I think it will be a centralized one, and initiative by government gives a lot of transparency, and we hope that it will help all the patients in India. Now, apart from this, policy also has good initiatives, like there are center of excellence, 8 center of excellence, where all the patients are referred to one of the center nearest to them, and then decision will be taken on the medical condition, on eligibility criteria. And the policy also has certain long-term vision for newborn screening, prenatal tests, and R&D. So overall, it is a good move and good movement in India for rare disease policy. Now, coming back to how this policy, patient groups have formed, it is almost a decade-long story where all the patients have tried their different level, and ultimately these policies have come with a judicial intervention. Like court has ordered based on the PIL filed by the patients in various states and also in Delhi. And as an outcome of this, rare disease policy has come. Prior to this, in Karnataka also, the court has ordered, and today in Karnataka is the only state in India where the treatment for LSTs and PID is going on from last 4 years. And I run an exclusive daycare center in Indira Gandhi Institute of Child Health, and I'm happy to say that we treat more than 50 children sponsored by both Compensate Access Program and Karnataka government. And this is one of the biggest LSD treating center, not just in India, but also South Asian countries. But I would say this is a long battle and there's still a long way to go, because the policy needs a budget, and we hope that government very soon gives certain budgetary allocation, and there is a definitive hope. And we are all hopeful. And as the doctor says, all the stakeholders has to come together as a teamwork and work for a long-term advocacy, so that every patient in India gets support of treatment or a supportive care wherever there is no treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasanna. I can see that there's a lot of progress that has happened on the rare disease front in India. Talking about at a central level, I would now love to know from Tanya about global level. Tanya, International Gaucher Association has been working towards access to diagnosis, optimal treatment and care. So what kind of programs have they implemented, and how do they operate on a global level?
Yeah, thank you. Both Atif and Prasanna have sort of mentioned, the word charitable access. And, for us as a global organization, since we were established in 1994, we wanted to be the go-to organization globally if patients needed support. There is currently a number of companies that manufacture treatment for the management of Gaucher's disease, not the neurological aspects, but the visceral aspects. And obviously, in many countries around the world, there are government-led programs that fund access to treatment for patients once they are diagnosed and they meet the eligibility criteria. But as we know that there are so many countries around the world where patients are diagnosed where there is just no access to treatment. And this is for many reasons, cost, but also lack of awareness. These charitable access programs are run by the companies, but it's really important to understand that they're not just about giving treatment. It's more of a holistic program. And actually, by giving treatment, what that does, with that comes education to the physicians. And obviously, as the physician becomes more aware about the disease, they have improved awareness. By being part of these programs, we're bringing them into a more global community, which can help them sort of buddy up with experts around the world, and they have access to more up-to-date treatment information. Also improves their knowledge, and they're able then to actually go forward and diagnose new patients because they have this new education. And they can also work with local patient organizations, and Atif mentioned this, where those patient organizations can then put those patients and families in contact with other patients and families, and this results in sort of improved patient care and, most importantly, improved lives. As the CEO of the International Gaucher Alliance, we work with these companies and we push them to be able to go into different countries and provide treatment for patients. For instance, we recently had a patient in Mongolia. We had to set up a whole system. We had to work with the Red Cross. We had to work with, getting the treatment into the country. And as an organization, we can sort of be the catalyst that brings all of those people together. And the other thing we do is we make sure that once those patients are treated by charitable access, that they are treated until they're in a position where they don't need it anymore. For instance, we worked, for instance, in like Russia, they developed their own government program, and those patients that were on charitable access then went over to be treated by the government program. But those patients will not be, there is a commitment by the companies that those patients will not be taken off of charitable access until it actually is paid for. There was a recent case where companies are starting to license these drugs in countries, but just because they license them, it doesn't mean the government's in a position to pay. So that's where we as a global organization can work with organizations like in India and Pakistan and Africa and other areas, to say, well, just because the drug is licensed doesn't mean patients will get access to it. So that's really important role for us. We do have a database of patients who come to us, and we work and advocate on their behalf. The other thing we do with working with the companies is we also try and work with the patient organizations or patients in that country to work with the government to actually get the government to take on a responsibility for funding rare diseases in their countries, and to develop, treatment funds. It's not a quick fix, and it can take many years. And there are also lots of pressures, as we all understand, political changes, new patients coming on, new therapies that put pressure on budgets. And of course, the health demands of the country can change. For example, what we've all been through with COVID-19. So it's a really challenging environment. But in the Gaucher world where I work with, there are many hundreds and hundreds of patients in many countries that have been able to access treatment through charitable programs, and it really has saved those patients' lives. But charitable access is not a bottomless pot of treatment, and therefore it's not a long-term solution. It has changed patients' lives and I believe saved them, but there's still so much work to do, and that's why sessions like this are so important to bring everybody together.
Thank you, Tanya. So important point would be physician education, so that they are able to pick up cases, and also international collaboration. So we can try and see if I understand that the drugs are quite expensive, but if something could be done on compassionate basis. Tanya, is there any specific criteria that these companies work on? Is it patient-to-patient basis, or is it country-wise that it differs, whether they'll be giving it on compassionate basis or not?
Yeah. So the companies that we deal with, each company has a different criteria based on their goals as an organization. So for some companies, they only treat pediatric patients. For others, they only treat in countries where their drug isn't licensed. And then for others, there's a very limited pot. And then there's no, basically, if a patient if a doctor approaches them, they then won't process that. So it's difficult. It really does depend. And that's one of the things that we can do, is be the sort of middleman sometimes, because we know which criteria for each program, and we can then say, well, this program would be best for you to approach, because obviously from diagnosis to treatment, is that time scale is very, very important, particularly when you're dealing with some very, very sick patients.
Thank you for sharing this, Tanya. Next, I would like to ask Helen. Helen, how is ICF helping in creating awareness and inclusion of rare conditions in a community in China? And what is the development that has happened over the years?
Thanks, Sushma. Well, the ICF is committed to creating and providing opportunities for the rare disease patients on medical care, rehabilitation, education, employment, and social inclusion. We also focus on empowering patient organizations, building platforms for multiple stakeholders, creating signature programs with strong public engagement, promoting institutional support for rare diseases, and solving pressing problems faced by the rare disease communities. But one of the most important thing we do is to provide rare disease medical aid fund for people with rare diseases. It provides comprehensive support for rare disease patients, including medical referral resources, information about local medical insurance, and the latest progress on pharmaceutical development and financial aids to individuals. And we also support more than 100 rare disease organizations. These services are tailored to the type and seriousness of the diseases and the specific problems the organizations have encountered, which include information management, patient services, publicity activities, and policy advocacy. And the goal of the organization support program is also to help the rare disease organizations improve their service quality and efficacy and form an integrative partnership on policy advocacy. And our years' experience in serving rare disease patients and their families allow us to see and analyze problems from the patient's perspectives and to provide suggestions and solutions centered on the patient's needs. And we conduct independent patient experience and outcome research, identifying current living status of rare disease patients and their families. We also publish research reports and policy briefs, disseminate policy recommendations through research seminars and industrial media, and advocate policy changes via public health campaigns. We share the stories of the rare disease patients in forms of videos, photos, text, and comics. By doing so, we raise the public awareness of rare diseases to help the public better understand the real lives of patients, to eliminate the prejudice and the discrimination, and to create an inclusive, equal, and respectful social environment. Well, during the past 10 years, there's huge development in rare disease community in China. As in my introduction, when I came into the world of rare diseases, I worked for China Dao Center for Rare Disorders, which is founded in 2008. At that time, there are only a few patient organizations in China. However, since 2012, the development of rare disease patient groups have become rapid. And when the Ice Bucket Challenge came into China in 2014, there were huge changes in social awareness and policies. In the past 6 years, patient organizations have been working with industries and the government and participating in all the changes have come so far. Now we have connections with over 150 patient groups in China, and most of them are on national level and focusing on single disease or a disease group. But what I want to say honestly is now that what ICF has done to make those changes is all the rare disease patients and the patient organizations work together. And a lot of rare disease patient groups in China look forward to work with global rare disease communities to amplify their strengths. Because we all know it's extremely important that patients work together because the rarity of the rare disease.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, that's an important aspect that all of us work together to achieve the common goal of inclusion. And China, I think, is doing a good job of this, and your organization is helping them in doing that on a large scale. It makes a lot of difference when there's some organization or organizations come together to formulate policies and for awareness. Of course, individually, each parent wants to do this, but when it is a collective effect, it makes a lot of difference in the whole community. I'll be taking a few questions from the audience now. Dr. Gulati, there's a question which says, in many countries, smartphones and mobile internet far exceed in-ground internet cable penetration. What is the state of people in your countries and disease ability to access information and services via mobile internet?
Yeah, this is now, especially since the COVID time, But even earlier, like we had all this smartphones and going the e-way, using technology through websites and all have increased. Although the webinars and all has come up more so since COVID time, but otherwise even before that we had this tele helpline. We had started in 2018 April actually, and teleconsultation. People are accessing, and they are using smartphones, and they send videos across and all. So that is there, and we have actually done studies before that. We've done studies, 3 to 4 studies we have done before, because the problem is in teleconsultation, what we have to see, we should not be missing a critical clinical event if we are not seeing face to face. So we have done and then got an evidence, and everything is structured. And I just wanted to mention one thing which is not related, just 3 points were there. One is we have lack of medical insurance in our country. Other thing is palliative care is not thought of in terminal ill patients, and the humanistic approach is very, very important, for having standing up for building a more humane society through an ethics-based approach on human and other natural values. These 3 things I just taking this opportunity to flag, because they are deficient in our country at least.
Agreed, ma'am. Okay. The next question is for Tanya. Tanya, what is the goal of the alliance, and how do you go about achieving goals? Is it funded, or do you have alliance members pay a membership fee?
Thank you. So we are every year we put together a program of activities from feedback from our community and other stakeholders. And we then put together finance applications that we will approach foundations, and we will approach the pharmaceutical industry for support. And then depending on what monies that we get in, we will then prioritize those programs. So our members, there is no membership fee associated with being a part of the IGA. It is free to be a member of the IGA, but you do have to meet certain criteria. So most of our funding comes from external sources.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Next question again for Dr. Gulati. What is the level of accessibility for whole genome and or exome sequencing in India for kids diagnosed with neurodevelopmental disorders and epilepsy? And is there a patient registry in India for neurodevelopmental disorders?
Yeah, we are developing a registry for neurodevelopmental disorders, and it also includes most of the rare diseases are also there in that registry. We are just in the process of launching out, and we are doing a collaboration between AIMS and GOSH UCL and trying to develop the registry because data elements are very important. And regarding the NGS, next generation sequencing, there is a problem in India because of funds. As a part of our center of excellence, we are providing it free of cost for muscle dystrophies and epileptic encephalopathies and autism, but that is in project mode. But otherwise it has to be it is not available free of cost. We are trying to develop this, and ultimately they are actually have to be outsourced. And once we will be in AIMS New Delhi, once we start doing it, then we can we can try to do it, but it is because a lot of cost is involved. We are giving it free of cost as a part of the center of excellence, but pan India, most of the places they have to be paid for.
Okay. Dr. Gulati, in case anyone wants to register in your registry, is there a process? How can they get in touch with you?
We will be launching it in probably a month's time or something. It has not been launched as yet, so I will be putting it. We'll be putting it on our website. We'll share with ORDA also. But our website is www.pedneuroaims.org. PED is pediatric, NEURO is neuro, AIM is and .org. So we'll be putting it out on that.
Thank you. Helen, this next question should be most probably for you. This person has around 40 families with ASH1L mutation, which is considered to be rare. And there are around 20 families in China. So her question is, how do we establish communication successfully with these 20 ASH1L families in China, and can they be a part of your group?
Yes, of course. They're very welcomed. we have our website, which is www.chinasf.org. And we also have a hotline, and you can find on our website. And I can leave my contact information with the team. If that's okay, you can hand out my contact and connect with us. And we hope that they can connect with the other patients and their communities.
Thank you, Helen. Dr. Gulati, one more question for you. How is a diagnosis an important part, and diagnosis along with proper follow-up important in rare disease management? And does it play a role in clinical trials as well?
Absolutely. See, as I mentioned to you, in many of the conditions, if you catch them pre-symptomatic, that means if you're doing by a newborn screening, and otherwise we don't have newborn screening in India for these. So otherwise we see for SIBs. So if you have pre-symptomatic and then when you give the intervention, their improvement is better. But once the neurological damage has taken place, like I gave you the example of the hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, it becomes a problem. Coming to DMD and SMA, if they are not picked up early and they're picked up later, if a DMD child has become non-ambulatory, after doing anything, if you're doing an exon skipping or anything, it is not, or if you're having a stop nonsense mutation, you give ataluren, or if it is 45, 50, 153, you do an ASO, like the antisense oligonucleotide for exon skipping, the child will not start walking back. It is not going to revert. So we have to pick up early. Same thing for SMA. If you had scoliosis and it's gone progress, it's not going to go back. You're not going to recover. You are going to recover the milestones developed in the child, in the younger children. Once the complications have begun, the complications won't recover. So it is very important that all the the pediatricians and have to be aware and pick these up early and diagnose them early. That is very, very important. The further treatment will totally depend on what the condition of the child is. Is I audible?
Yes, I'm on. Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gulati. Next question I would like to ask Prasanna and Atif. How do pharmaceutical companies play a role in rare disease organization and bringing a change in the rare disease landscape in terms of medication and in terms of management? And how can they approach organizations, or how does organizations also play a role in these trials and bringing in these medications into the market?
Okay. Thank you, Sushma. See, as a parent support group and the organization working in the rare disease field, this is our utmost priority to get access to all the international resources in terms of treatment and clinical trial. So we have various ways of engaging them. One, we have a lot of programs running in terms of awareness programs for medical fraternity, awareness program for the patient community. They can join hands. Then in case of drug development, they can definitely approach us because we are in touch with the doctors, we are in touch with the patients. We can be a bridge between the doctors and patient community so that they get easy access to all the resources and we can fast track the entire process, rather than individually coming up and setting up. Because especially in a country like India, where it is geographically huge and widespread, and there are very limited number of specialists, so that patient group and organization can help us. And also through awareness and conducting various programs, it will help them to understand what is going on in India, what is the scenario, what is the infrastructure available. Then finally, especially if they want to launch any clinical trials or drug development, today we have a very conducive environment from the government itself. The new drug policy has clear-cut definitions and timeline approvals and a lot of facilities. I think that is a good area where we can help them with resources so that they can take decisions very fast. And also, I would like to mention today our Prime Minister has announced the digital health mission. I think this will also help us in building the database and patient information, I'm talking about all ethical and approved information helps us. I think these are the various ways that they can connect with us.
Thank you, Prasanna. Atif?
Yeah, I agree with Prasanna what he has just mentioned. But I think, yes, when we talk about South Asia, specifically this region, like if we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan is the sixth largest country, over 220 million people living in this country, and with the intermarriage rate as high as 60%. So that makes us one of the most vulnerable communities. So there is a greater need of international attention towards this region because it's a huge population and there are a lot of unmet needs, and that can only be done through partnerships and through these collaborations between international organizations and pharmaceutical companies. So that's the way out for this. For instance, like last Rare Disease Day, we had an opportunity to interact with our policymakers, and we got this opportunity to educate them about the lack of rare disease policy in our country and its impact, and how it is creating kind of challenges for the rare disease patient community. So this was the platform being provided by one of the pharmaceutical company who was operating in Pakistan. So that was the very first time that we got an opportunity, a patient support group got an opportunity to highlight their concerns and challenges to the highest forum. And similarly, there is a lot of patient community who are looking for support, and that can be done through the platform available with the pharmaceutical companies and international organizations. As Prasanna mentioned, the clinical trials. Unfortunately, very limited clinical trials are available in this region, and there is a huge population who are looking for kind of support and kind of treatment for this.
Thank you, Atif. Because of time constraint, we would like to wind up. Can I request each of the panelists to give in a message about your work, your country, about rare conditions, and short? Can we start with Prasanna?
Yeah. So the key message is every country, especially India, needs international collaboration and all the stakeholders to come together. And ODA, working in this field from last 10 years, in the one of the earliest and only organization working 360-degree in terms of patient support. I think we can work together with everyone to create a very conducive, healthy environment for the rare disease patients and families back in India.
Thank you, Prasanna. Can we have Atif?
I agree with Prasanna what just said. Yes, my message is exactly the same. I think it's about time that we need to have international collaborations more in this region. There is a lot of awareness now in our community, and there is more kind of services available to the patients. And now we are establishing genetic centers here. So this environment is quite conducive. And as I mentioned already, that it's one of the biggest rare disease community, which is residing in these regions. So it's really very important for us to have international support so that these unmet needs can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya?
Yeah, my message would be that, it's about partnership and collaboration. I think that one of the things that I would like to see is that, individual patient organizations, particularly on a global level, look to work more collaboratively with each other and with organizations like Global Genes and Rare Disease International, so that we are a stronger voice and we don't duplicate, and we use the resources that we have and the voice and the power that we have more efficiently and effectively.
Thank you, Tanya. Helen?
Well, I totally agree with the others, and I think the changes could only be done when our rare disease patients, communities, and all parties are united.
Agreed. Thank you. Dr. Gulati?
I think from starting from prevention by genetic counseling and prenatal diagnosis to early detection, that is one thing very important. And then I feel that, Global Genes and all should support the parent support groups in LMIC countries like ours, and, provide some support. And pharma companies should have a lower, consideration for the cost. And I think all that together with the support from the government and we have to understand that the parent advocacy group and the professionals have to work together, not in silos. Then sky is the limit. And I feel that when one is ready to give up, hope always whispers, try one more time. I think and should not lose hope.
Thank you, Dr. Gulati.
Thank you.
Thank you each and every panelist for your insights. Thank you, Global Genes, for offering us this wonderful platform. I would say interactions like this is what will make a big difference globally. Thank you.